What is up, fellow sickos? I am Dan Favale, coming at you with yet another 2025-2026 NBA season look ahead. The Golden State Warriors are up now that the Jonathan Kuminga soap opera is over at long last, or at least has reached some sort of a pause until he's trade eligible. I'm very excited. I have the distinct pleasure this year, once again, making his second ever look ahead appearance as a guest. The one, the only, covers the NBA, including the Warriors for Bleacher Report. He's also the co-host of a moderately known podcast within the basketball circles, Mr. Grant Hughes. Follow him on the socials at Grant Hughes, spelled exactly as it sounds. Grant, I can't believe it's been a whole year.
Been a full year.
How the heck are you doing?
I was worried that you were going to ask me to give you, like, where can people find your stuff? And I was going to have to scramble to, like, what is my Blue Sky handle? I couldn't remember. It's on the screen. Yeah, it's a shame it took a year to get back together. But here we are. You know, we did it. We made it. We connected. It's very difficult for us to get in contact with each other, but we pulled it off. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to talk about one team. We talk all the time about how, like, wouldn't it be nice if we could cover one team? But I'm also nervous because I feel like I'm going to be put in a position where I'm supposed to be an authority, and that makes me uncomfortable, Dan. I'm going to do my best.
Which I never would have guessed, because all you do off air is make demands.
Right.
So
yeah, I'm very hard to manage.
Yeah.
But yeah, which is really why you said it was because of the Kuminga thing that we took so long to get to this. It was because you couldn't meet my price. It took a lot of negotiating to get to this point, but we did it.
The number of carbon credits I had to give to Grant to get him on here was just absolutely insane.
Yeah, it was tough. You know, but we got here. That's the important point. And we do get to talk about. I'm biased, but this is a really interesting team. So hopefully produce an interesting podcast. Yeah,
second best in the West according to ESPN's projections.
What
could go wrong?
Feature in our discussion. What could go wrong? I'm prepared to tell you.
Speaking of something that I think went according to plan, we have to start with the Jonathan Kuminga situation. We have talked a little bit about it, but now you're a little bit removed from the situation. He ends up with the 1-1, the 2-year deal with the team option. How do you ultimately feel about where he and the Warriors ended up?
I mean, in a lot of ways, they ended up where they started, which is kind of the relationship exists. It doesn't seem like everybody is super happy about it, but I mean, look, I'll just tell you up front, like, I'm going to turn this into a little more of a dialogue than just me answering your questions, because, I don't know, we're both interested in this team. It seemed to me that the Warriors got everything they wanted out of this deal, right? Like, they get the team option, they get a number that they want that allows them to just fit all the other guys that everybody knew were teed up onto the payroll. And they preserved Kuminga as basically as valuable a trade asset as he could have been, because if you have 2 guaranteed years and a team option on a third, I think that, to me, if I'm an acquiring team, is maybe slightly less appealing than the one and the team option, because you can bring him in January when he's eligible to be traded. You can use this year to decide, like, how do we like this fit, and then you can just keep him cheap. You know, if he becomes,
you could rip it up.
You can rip it. Yeah. Oh boy, that was so. For anybody, if you're listening to this podcast, you are like, you're in the weeds enough. But like, did that one bother you or annoy you? That's not really what team. That's to say that a deal with a team option was signed with the intent to rip it up after the guaranteed year is just so nakedly agent speak that's trying to make it look better for the player than it actually does, right? Like, that was almost a new step in the BSing of contract reporting.
It was next level water carrying for sure, but
it
provides an interesting content opportunity. If for some reason his next team does decline the option, there better be a video of just them ripping up the contract as he's on one.
Right. Chicago Bulls social media team, you're on notice. You're going to have to just get a contract ready.
Oh, man, that Vooch deal in Golden State's going to hit like cocaine, huh? Damn.
Yeah, it'd be great. Yeah, no, I think, look, I don't know how much analysis of his fit with the Warriors this year is going to be different than it has been almost since his rookie season. Like, we'll get into it more, but like the end result of the negotiations is we now know kind of when this relationship will be over, unless something crazy happens and Kuminga becomes the player he thinks he can be, and it actually makes sense on this roster. Which, like, boy, there's a lot of caveats involved with that hypothetical. But there is like closure in sight, I suppose. But for now, for the first basically half of this season, it's going to be a lot of the same, where he's probably not going to start. He's going to have inconsistencies night to night. There will be the same athletic flashes. There'll be the same mistakes. Maybe he improves in some of the areas he's been deficient that have cost him playing time. But to me, like, for example, the worry that, like, oh boy, there's going to be some friction and this isn't different. Like, he's been mad about his role forever, and the Warriors have continued to use him the way they think is the right way forever. Like, that's just, so you know what I'm saying? Like, not a lot actually functionally has changed.
That's a really good point. And it's also just Draymond Green is on this team, and they went through the Kevin Durant era, so friction is their default, it feels like, to some extent. What I'm very curious about is, and I think you and I are in agreement with this, shocker, the best way for Kuminga to, like, establish himself as a great fit on the Warriors would be, can you knock down threes? Can you defend hard? Can you rebound the basketball? And can you make quicker decisions with the ball, where it's catch and go if you want to put the ball on the deck? So we're in agreement with that. My question to you about this, though, is, okay, he's on the roster, and if you're the Warriors, I also agree that this was basically an ideal outcome for them, as you have this large, essentially expiring contract of a young player that still has tons of upside. So it's not just we're trading you as expiring salary, or we're trading you as a could-be valuable role player. He can function, and this is very rare, as both their outgoing salary ballast and, like, one of the prospects that are in any deal they want to make. But you still have to make sure that his value is intact as that prospect, as that upside player. Is there something the Warriors can do, in your eyes, to where they're adapting to them a little bit more? Whether it's, okay, like, maybe this is someone who needs to play more with Al Horford, like, to ensure that the floor is spaced as possible. Like, let's get Draymond Green off the court, or let's get Jimmy Butler off the floor during those minutes. Is there just something that they can do to adapt to him a little bit? Because, one, it serves the purpose of increasing his trade value, but then also, in theory, if Kuminga's playing well, your team is better.
Yeah, I think they're kind of, I guess they're sort of the same issue. Like, you want to set him up to succeed. One, because that's good for the team, and two, that's good for his trade value, right? So, like, what does that look like? I think there's just some fairly well-established basics, which include spacing. So Horford matters in that effort. Like, Kuminga with Kevon Looney and Draymond Green is a non-starter. Kuminga, Butler, Green, like, it's just the space. Steve Kerr said it forever. Like, the spacing just doesn't work. Now, that's it's true, but it's also a good way to justify not using Kuminga, when that's only part of the reason the Warriors don't want him in a huge role. Some of the deficiencies that you mentioned already, that I'm sure we'll talk about, are the other way that Kerr could justify it. And that would feel more like, we just don't think this guy is that good, which is like, that serves nobody. So spacing matters. Look, if there were an easy answer to how do you make him the best version of himself, they would have found it at some point in the last several seasons. I think on one side of the coin, you'd say, well, he should be out there with Steph and with spacing and with the starters, because that's less defensive attention on him. And maybe that makes it so he's not faced with a good defender, or other guys can set him up more often. Or, he should be comfortable, he should be more successful as a cutter, as whatever, like in transition, just because less attention on him, more attention elsewhere, more open space for his athleticism to just, like, shine. That just isn't the type of player that he's been. Like, the way that he's been successful generally is he has the ball a lot, and it's a lot of record scratch possessions, and he draws fouls really effectively. And, like, that's kind of, so if you're looking for how do we get Kuminga's points per game as high as possible, it's probably allowing him to play the kind of role that he wants, which is kind of more of a first option. He won't be efficient, but he can get some counting stats. The Warriors aren't super interested in that. I think there are possible situations where, when all the old guys are sitting, or two of them are, Kuminga does just kind of play that role sometimes where he's just a higher usage guy, and maybe he has success there. Like he had a couple 30-point playoff games, right, after Steph got hurt. So like there's some proof of concept. They didn't win those. So like that's
also proof of concept.
Something where that's proof of concept there. So I'm kind of rambling, but I think all the basics you'd assume go into making him look good are still just what they are. Space, more touches, that kind of thing. Start him out, frankly. Like he just always plays harder when he starts, which is another, like that's a knock, by the way. So yeah, I don't have any like magic fix because I don't think the Warriors do.
What do you think? And I guess this is definitely dependent on how their season is going, but what is the end game of a Kuminga trade? Is it to get prospects and picks for him? Is it to use his salary so they could bring in another big name player? And then how married to one idea might they be to where is there just a chance that the right deal isn't out there and he's just still on this team past the trade deadline?
It's possible that he's still there. I mean, that's not the outcome anybody wants. So everybody's very much motivated to make sure that he's not on this team past the deadline, I think. I would say, I think given the age of the core, and now you've made it older with Horford, and the window is, I don't know if it's open at all, but however open it is, it's closing in a hurry in a couple years. Just that everybody's contracts line up to expire, by the way. So I think it has to be, he has to be used in pursuit of someone who profiles as like, I don't know, your third or fourth best player that's probably older and probably has not the best, is more of a star pursuit than anything else. Now, you're going to have to make the deal bigger than just Kuminga if that's the way it goes. But, who knows, though, because there are some pretty clear needs I think this team has that maybe are like sort of lower in the cost, on the cost side, that he could be used to, I don't know, go get a guy that's your fifth or sixth best player that just makes sense for sort of what to address the shortcomings that this team has. It could go either way. I think, though, it is a win now move. Like you're trading a younger player and probably some picks for someone that's going to upgrade the roster for the end of this season and maybe next year. It's pretty short, like time horizon thinking.
Let's talk about someone other than Jonathan Kuminga. How big is the Al Horford edition for this team? We tend to over-romanticize mid-level signings of dudes who are in their late 30s. This one just feels different, though.
He's just kind of, other than his age, he's kind of perfect. He gives them something that they've never had, which is a guy who can defend the rim, defend in space, and shoot. Like that's just, they've had one or two of those things from bigs in the past, never all of them. To me, like he's going to be part of all of their best lineups. And the question will just be at 39, how many games can he play? He probably isn't going to play back-to-backs. He's bound to miss. You just have to price in missed time. So that sort of, I guess, limits his value, but that's a regular season thing. They get to the playoffs. That's all that matters to this team, obviously. So he's just an ideal fit. Like he's a good passer. Like, I don't know. We're not saying anything at this point that people don't know about Al Horford, but on this team in particular, he's a piece they've never had. Even when they were just full on dynasty, didn't have this type of guy. Like just haven't. So it's a fun new wrinkle that he's just purely additive, takes nothing off the table. Maybe that's the best way to put it compared to some of the bigs they've had in the past.
Is there like a player in particular that, is it like, oh, he needs to be on the floor, or you're interested in seeing him on the floor with the most, where it's like, oh, this really opens up stuff for Jimmy Butler, or I mean, like the dynamic between him and Steph could be insane. There's also just he could carry this outsized importance to someone like Jonathan Kuminga's game if they're both in the front court.
Yeah, it's everybody. I think like, they have already in preseason messed with him and Quinten Post at the same time, which is like unheard of. Like they just never
saw that, and I hope it stays. I just want to see it more.
And you can do it because you're not Horford is not a conventional big defender. Like he's just, some of the numbers on his switch defense are just sort of unbelievable at this age still. So he just lets you get as creative as you want. I think maybe the best case scenario is he helps them address one of the biggest weaknesses, which is they don't have almost anybody that, and I'm sure I'm stepping on several things I'll say later. They just don't have anybody that reliably can just beat his guy, touch the paint, bend the defense, like with the dribble. And maybe his spacing and passing just allows them to, score in other ways, or maybe it's such a value add in terms of spacing that guys like, I don't know, Moses Moody or even Pods that they just don't beat their guy actually can once in a while because there's nobody in the middle of the floor. I don't know. There's a lot of ways he could impact the team positively.
Would you have any concerns functionally about him being there? He's never been like a high, I mean, not that they necessarily have this, but like a high volume rebounding big. Could those some of the lines get dicey? I
could see defensive rebounding being an issue because Draymond has kind of slipped a little bit in that area too. But functionally, no. Al Horford is not someone you worry about fitting like anywhere because he just doesn't, do anything that gets in anybody's way. It is just, again, the age. Like your core is already so old and cannot be expected to play a ton, and we know he's not playing 65 games, or certainly not 70. So that's the only thing is he does sort of exacerbate a weakness that was already there, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And you had mentioned the switching before, and I had been reading something that says, was looking at the Golden State switch numbers last year, which were not especially high. Do you think they're going to do more switching now that you have, especially during the minutes that you have both Draymond and Horford on the floor?
Yeah, I think so. And I think they want to do that because in their think back to like Kevon Looney in the 22 title run was switching on to, you name the superstar, and like somehow holding up. So they want that in the bag for sure, and it just isn't something, Trace Jackson Davis started games for them last year, and that's just not something he's able to do as a center. So
what about Quinten Post?
Quinten Post. Well, this is maybe the only negative thing I say about him. He's not that's not something he can do either. So yeah, he unlocks optionality, and I think against certain teams, I think they'll switch a lot. Because honestly, like, it's like a less stressful way to play defense if you can do it, just because you're not fighting through screens, you're just passing guys off. And I don't know, maybe that's a way you save all these 35-plus-year-old legs as you switch a lot more.
What is like the defining so they're first in defense last year after Jimmy Butler's debut. Now they get Al Horford. They in theory just get better. But like when you look at the secret sauce behind this defense, they don't have an elite ball hawk anymore. Maybe you think that's DeAnthony Melton when he's healthy around like Christmas, January, whatever that's going to be. That's not really like GP2 certainly now is not going to do that. What is just the singular trait about this defense that makes it so good when you're looking at, okay, you have Butler, you know what Draymond does, we know what Horford does. Butler's a better off-ball defender than he is an on-ball defender, and yet it all just kind of comes together, and yeah, they might not be on OKC's level wire to wire, but their best lineups can defend like any other team's best lineups.
Yeah, I think one thing that feels like an outlier is after they got Butler last year, they did lead the league in opponent turnovers forced, like as a percentage, which is just like, to your point, like they don't really have the personnel for that. Moody's kind of sneaky, handsy, like it's hard to dribble around him. Peyton's a deflections guy. Pods is a take charges guy. His steal rate's low. Draymond's not as mobile as he was or disruptive, although like he'll get you a steal and a block. So it's not going to be an OKC style defense. It's not like overwhelming or like a Houston defense where it's just like these guys are just glued to you and you can't move. I think the main thing is they don't get out thought ever. Like it's just, you have Draymond, Steph, all this experience. They've played every type of offense there is. Jimmy Butler's like a genius. What they lack in the physical tools that you might see in a really disruptive defense, they make up for with just, I don't know, like know-how and like they're just sound. Like they don't give up a lot of shots where you're like, that was a clear lapse, like that kind of thing. And they do win the math game. Like everybody always says like the way that Chase and previously Oracle would log shots at the rim, with their tracking data was like kind of BS, which is like, how do the Warriors always have the lowest percentage of opponent shot attempts at the rim?
Always
it's like
so high in location, effective field goal
right.
percentage.
And it's like there's there's a little bit of like goosing the numbers there, but they really do just not allow a lot around the basket. And so that's just, again, that goes to, they're just smart and they've seen everything. And Draymond's third in defensive player of the year last year. So it's like, there is an anchor. Like, it's just, we can't forget they do have talent. It's just not, it's not like Amen Thompson, J-Dub, like just talent. Like, it's not that kind.
It almost feels like because they have Draymond as that, I mean, he's all over, but like that backstop is he diminishes like the stakes in front of him, because when there are mistakes made, or if screen navigation isn't great, or you don't even need to focus on that much, or you have someone like Jimmy Butler who can take more chances, like more, and that contributes to the turnovers. Like, well, Draymond's just going to be there to clean up any of the miscues or direct somebody to do that. And now it's, oh, we're just going to add Al Horford to that, who's also really good at doing that type of stuff.
I think one key thing, and maybe there'll be lapses in the regular season because it's a veteran team and whatever, but like, it's going to be pretty rare where a team comes out and like, one, gets to the thing they want to do first easily, or two, does something that the Warriors are just like not prepared to defend. They're always, it's just this amount of experience and just generally smart defensive players sets your floor really high, because you're just not going to like catch them making the same mistake twice, or even, hit them with something that they weren't prepared for generally. Because it's just like, what has Jimmy Butler not seen as a defender?
Right.
Their processing speed is just, again, it makes up for a pretty unathletic roster.
And it's even just like teams running on them last year, which you would think is sort of like the Warriors miss a shot, teams get out in transition. That's like their Achilles heel. And I think after the Butler trade, they were 28th in opponent frequency on the break after live rebounds, and yet they were first in points allowed per possession, which is just like kind of insane. And it's not saying his defense doesn't have weaknesses, but it just like, you would think that would be the recipe to maybe undermining the Warriors defense. And it just, with Butler there, it might not be.
Yeah. I think ironically, it's easier to run on the Warriors when they have like their younger, more athletic guys out there, because those are the guys that don't think, okay, I'm the high man in this offensive possession, I need to sprint back. Kuminga did it in the preseason game. Like, it was just a blatant like fuck up. That's just like, first of all, like he should have been able to catch the guy because he's an A+ athlete. But like that, you're going to be able to run on like the Buddy Hield, Kuminga Post, like younger, quote unquote, more athletic looks. Buddy Hield's not young, but you know what I mean? It's like the old guys actually just, it's harder to catch them sleeping.
Do you want this to, like, is D'Anthony Melton, I guess, enough of just, I think Andrew Wiggins, that was what people probably didn't appreciate him about enough, is a lot of the on-ball work that he did. Yeah. Do you think a healthy D'Anthony Melton is enough to cover that up, or is this a team where it's, when you're looking at, we'll get into their single biggest need later, but how much of a need do you view as having like more of like, and maybe Butler can do it for stretches, but that's like, that's not Jimmy Butler right now. So do you view that as an actual concern for this team, or not really?
I think they're not really. I think they're gonna turn to Moody, I think, quite a bit in the Wiggins role. He won't be as good as Wiggins was at his best, but he'll probably be about as good as Wiggins was 80% of the time he was on the team. So that, and then just having the switchability behind that, I think, their teams, I guess, will target Steph, but that's been the case for 17 years or whatever it is. And the Warriors have just had a top 10 defense always, basically, since this whole thing started. So I think you're right. Like, maybe just a point of attack, like ball hawk type guy is maybe what they don't have, unless Melton is magically fully healthy. But I don't view that as like, I think their defense is going to be better than their offense. I guess I'll just put it that way.
What did you make of the initial Jimmy Butler fit and just sort of the dynamic specifically between him and Dre, him and Steph?
He's just, I feel like I'm going to be kind of broken record-y here, because like he just makes up for lack of spacing, lack of athleticism, with just, he understands where to be and like where the weaknesses in the defense are and how to exploit them. And when all else fails, he just goes and gets fouled. So he, like, his chemistry with good players is just always going to be good, because he can figure out what needs to happen, and who needs to be where and who needs a shot where. And is this a possession where I just have to go run into somebody to slow the game down and get free throws? Like, he's just great at that stuff. He is athletically diminished. Maybe that gets worse this year. But like, the numbers are just, so I had a couple that I pulled just for, and they probably won't be anything new. The Warriors are plus 12.8 with Butler on and Steph off last year, which is like unheard of. Now, a lot of that was defense, and it was a small sample, so there's shooting variance. But the offense was a 47th percentile offense with Butler on and Steph off, which is like, they'll take that like it's 7 days out of the week.
During the Kevin Durant era.
Right. Like that's not good, but relatively speaking, that's great. And then when you put him out there with any of the other vets, it's just like they just kill everybody. So he's pretty additive for a guy that doesn't space the floor, because he just figures out other ways to like capitalize,
Yeah, and even when you include the playoffs as part of that, so just combined in the regular season and playoffs, this is per PBP stats, they were a plus 5.2 per 100 when he played without Steph. It's like the offensive rating during that time is iffy, like 110. But like, if you're just going to tread, it's not about how you're treading water without Steph. You just need to tread water.
Just can you? And the answer almost always has been they cannot. So just if you break even with Steph off the floor, they're going to win a ton of games. Like, that's just because that's not been the case.
I actually found myself when I was watching, and I went back and watched some more Jimmy Butler possessions while I was putting together the outline for such a special guest like yourself. I get frustrated with Jimmy Butler on the ball a lot of like, I know what he can do as a driver in the foul drawing, and I thought that would extend. And I was feeling this last year. He's playing alongside other guys, and he's not he doesn't want to be a floor spacer either. But when he's off the ball, just an intuitive cutter that you mentioned, knows where to be, like the positioning in the post, or if he's going to be in the dunker spot. And it felt, I don't want to say seamless, but it was just like, oh, like this makes so much sense. And so it's Jimmy Butler on the ball the way he plays. Probably makes more sense during the non-Steph minutes, because it's okay, like you just need that sort of brute force. But like, I had worried that that feeling, the frustration of watching Jimmy Butler try to orchestrate around other really good players. Now you shift him to Golden State, where that's not his primary role, and those same limitations are still there, but they just don't matter as much. And it just felt like far more of an instinctual fit offensively than I thought it was ever going to be, again, when everyone was on the floor together rather than just the staggered minutes.
I think maybe, as you're hearing you say that, I think maybe his superpower is that like Steph gets a wild hair and throws a ridiculous pass that has no hope, and Draymond will do it 3 or 4 times a game, because they're just like, they're seeing stuff that's not there, or it's just like Butler, and this is what's frustrating sometimes, is so deliberate. Like, you cannot make him throw a pass he doesn't want to, because he's so strong. He could just get to a spot and like, he's there. It belongs to him now. He gets to do whatever he can do from there. You can't speed him up, cliche, but that is very true. Like, he won't take a decent three, because a decent three for him is actually not a great shot. He'll wait longer and look for something else. So I think just as a stabilizing force, particularly without Steph on the floor, he just like, it's hard to do better than him, because he's just going to do whatever he wants to do. And as long as it takes him to do it, that's it. So be it. Like, great, because now we have longer possessions, and Steph's rest counts for extra when he's not in the game. Like the more we shoot free throws while Steph is out, his 2 minutes off the floor turn into 8. So it is what frustrates about him, I think, sometimes is actually like a positive if you kind of flip it.
So I was going to ask you what you're tracking most closely with him headed into like his first full season with the team, but I wanted to actually, one of the things that I found fascinating, and I'm curious if other teams will do it, is we saw Minnesota go to like using a big on Jimmy a lot. Do you think that that's going to become more of a staple, especially knowing now who Golden State's 3 primary bigs are?
Yeah, they are going to be susceptible to that, because Butler, like, in a triple threat from the 3-point line, is not blowing by almost anybody. Like, he will just get to a more dangerous area, but it'll be a 2-foot plant, and he'll pump fake 14 times, and maybe he'll pass, and maybe he'll draw a foul. He's not blowing by anybody. So they are vulnerable there. I would just fall back on, like, if you show the Warriors that look enough times, they will just figure out where you're weak elsewhere because of it. So like, but that is to say that length and athleticism will be a huge problem for them. Like the Houstons, I'm stepping on a question later already again too. Houston, Minnesota, OKC, obviously, like they will present problems. Like they barely beat the Rockets in that series last year, and that Rockets team was deeply flawed on offense, and it was just because that defense was physically overwhelming. Al Horford is not solving that, right? Like that's going to be a pain point for this team no matter what.
What did you make of Steph's season last year, especially when you kind of juxtapose and he was still really good, I want to be clear, but when you look at the splits like pre and post Butler trade, like he's at 27 plus points, 58% of his twos after the Butler trade, 41% from three on it was like 11 and change attempts per game. Was it really I've heard a lot of framing of, oh, this was like he hit the give a shit switch. And like, how much of it was that? How much is it just like the talent around him was better, so he got better? And then is there any just area of drop off you are kind of monitoring knowing his age?
I think the explanation, both those explanations are valid. Steph gives a shit no matter what, though, so I would push back on that one a touch. Not saying you're saying that. I think the biggest thing was he was not constantly exhausted, because the way the team was constructed before Butler got there, now it's always been the case, but like the defensive attention he got, there was no reason not to throw two guys at him all the time, because there just wasn't an outlet that could do anything with the ball that could threaten the defense. Like every team was happy to just throw the kitchen sink at Steph and open opportunities up elsewhere, because the Warriors weren't equipped to capitalize on those. So just watching the game, Steph was like just physically, and maybe the best conditioned guy in the league, exhausted all the time. And I think Butler being there, one, allowed him to rest more, and for that rest to be longer. The free throws are a real thing. Like that does extend the amount of time that he's on the bench in real time.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And having someone that when you force the ball out of Steph's hands, Jimmy Butler's a pretty good option against a defense that's playing like 3-on-4, you know? So I think it was mostly that. In terms of like drop off, you'd have to look pretty hard to see any last year. I would say like the last 5 seasons or so, like Steph's rim attempt frequency is a little down, but his just last year versus 23-24 drive frequency about the same. Like if you're looking for athletic decline stuff, finishing at the rim pretty much the same. All this stuff is down from, the unanimous MVP in the next 5 years or so. But in terms of the last 5, there's not a lot statistically you could point to and say, oh, here it is. Here's the stat that shows he's slipped here. It could happen. It should happen eventually, right? But I don't think there's a lot of evidence at this point to say that that like we saw signs of concern last year,
which is incredible. And I think honestly, like between him and LeBron and maybe even Kevin Durant, we've probably are watching like 3 of the 5 greatest players to age. Like just when you look at how well they play with their aging curve, which is kind of insane. Yeah. But it's also just, all right, well, like it's going to happen at some point. Or like I can't get out of waiting for the shoe to drop versus just, as Andrew Claudio called it with Mikal Bridges' durability. It's like, I see a trend. I don't see as like they're overdue for something to go wrong. But when it comes to aging, it's just so different. But if you're just going off last season, and in theory, his on-court workload should be, if not lighter, then easier. Like, well, like, why isn't he going to be just as good? Is there a chance that he's just even better at the age of 37, which is insane?
It's on. I would expect him to be as good, like because it's hard to be. It's hard to say like he can be better getting a year older, just because he was. I don't know what didn't make either of our like all NBA first team ballots. Maybe I actually did put him on there, but he was the second team. Like really, what's amazing is he's playing at a higher level than LeBron right now. I mean, he's a few years younger, but like at some point we're gonna have
sciatica.
To be like,
put some respect on that.
Well, yeah, believe me, yeah, that's no joke. But yeah, no, I think I don't see decline, and I agree that it's just absurd that he's still doing this. We should just drink it in while we can, I guess.
Yeah. What'd you think about Draymond Green's season last year?
That one's a little different from a decline perspective. Third in defensive player of the year, is still just one of the best all around defensive players in the league. one of the smartest players in the league. He though
the IQ on this team is insane.
That's the thing. It's ridiculous. You can't really have a conversation about the smartest defensive players of all time without bringing Draymond up. I'm not saying he is number one, but it's like, I don't know. The resume is what it is. He though, anecdotally, I would say there were more games last year where you could pretty quickly surmise like, oh, he doesn't have it tonight. Just like from how he was moving, which is the expectation for guys with his mileage, and that have had to play the role that he has, which is just always against bigger players and or tracking smaller, quicker guys. Like, it's just the mileage is what it is. So like that would manifest in, he isn't if you go watch 2016, he as a grab and go defensive rebounder, it was just like lights out. It just would beat everybody up the floor with the ball. That's not really, you might get one of those every couple games now. And then there are rebounds now that elude him that didn't used to. He's still like a double digit per 36 rebounder, and for his size is a great rebounder. But
yeah,
those are just a couple things I noticed last year. I would expect those to continue to be issues. His 2-point finishing's worse, but he's had like crazy fluctuations in inside the arc field goal percentage over his career. Like there have been years where he's like a sub 40% guy, sub 45 on twos. He was like 51% last year on twos, which is way down from the year before, but still not like, I don't know, that's not crippling. So that's all to say, if I were picking one of Draymond, Butler, or Steph to really show their age this year, it would be Draymond, just because I think there have been more signs already.
Which is tough to score because I think they view him and have for at least like the past few years as that's not someone they want playing 30 minutes a game.
Yeah.
And you're going to say that about Al Horford as well.
Everybody.
I mean, like, you can't get away with not playing Steph or Jimmy 30 minutes a game on this team,
Probably
I
not.
would think.
Yeah.
And so, like, that is sort of a concern with this isn't a Draymond Green specific concern, but it becomes a concern specific to the entire roster where it's like, right, if two of your, like, four most important players or two of your six most important players you don't want playing that many minutes, like, what is the margin for error here, really?
It's not high. I mean, that's priced in. I think too, one of the things I've been kind of, one of the ways I'm thinking about this team is that they're so limited in just general like shot creation that you almost have to have two of Steph, Butler, Draymond, Horford on the floor at all times. Because if it's just one, it's probably not enough. And if it's zero, man, the offense can look really bad. So not only do you need to like be careful with minutes, but you also like, I don't think like all bench units for this team are going to get their ass kicked like fairly often. Now they might run hot and win some of those minutes, but like in general, I really think they got to have a couple of those four vets on the floor almost all the time to like just keep your floor from falling out.
After having watched Podziemski for a couple of years now, and then seeing him kind of when he came back from the abdominal or core injury or whatever he had, he was really good for like the final 30-plus games of the season. Is there any chance of him maybe filling, are we not giving enough credit to the idea that when you just look at like, I love those like idiosyncratic players, and there's like a wackadoodle in this, as Sarah Todd would say. Is there a chance for him to fill any of that shot creation void?
Boy, they want him to. That's one of the main things to keep an eye on this year is can he improve as a creator for himself and for other players? And that's gonna. My sense is it's gonna be very difficult for him to do that because he, like a lot of guys on this team, just isn't quick enough or big enough to like really just win individual matchups, like get all the way to the basket on a layup, for example, is like very hard for him. One of the things that makes him such a quirky player is he'll come to a stop in the lane, pivot several times, do a lot of up and unders and step throughs. And he's got a slow step now. He's like, credit him. He's looking everywhere for ways to be more of a reliable shot generator. I think he's a winning player. I think he helps on both ends. I haven't seen evidence that he's going to be a reliable, okay, Pods has the ball, he can make something happen with it, like for himself or for other guys, like consistently. I just think athletically, he's not quite. He's a combo guard, right? Like he's not a point guard, and that is an issue with this team. Is they need him to do more point guard stuff, which is just like beat your guy. For example, pick and roll, get a great shot for somebody. That's not so far a strength of his.
You just made me think of this. Is there a player that fits his physical profile that has ever then been able to do that? Because it's like you can talk about slower players being able to run offense, but they're usually have like real side. They're either operating from the post or it's just like they can get to that step back three and get their shots off over everyone. But when you're talking about someone in that, like 6'3", 6'2", 6'4" range who is not very athletic, like isn't going to get by it, like he almost feels like I think this does him a disservice, but it's almost the equivalent of if you wanted him to run a half court set, it's, are you asking shorter Kyle Anderson to do it a little bit?
I mean, that's obviously, I know that's like an extreme one, but I'm trying to think of, well, that just illustrates the difficulty of like what the team needs him to be. Like the best version of this Warriors team has someone in Podziemski's role that can get to the paint whenever he wants, and like I will say in the preseason game against Portland, LJ Cryer, who is not a person I had ever heard of, and will not play minutes on this team, is just a small athletic point guard. And him being able to just touch paint or, quickly like explode off a screen was like so noticeable because the Warriors don't have that guy. Again, not an NBA player, but that particular skill set just is not on this roster. So yeah, I don't know what the comp for Podziemski would be. Again, like all the numbers say it in the eye test. You do well when he's on the floor, generally speaking, unless he's someone you're counting on to run your offense. Like that's been beyond him so far.
Are you going to be speaking at Quinten Post Hall of Fame induction?
I'm not going to spoil my prediction coming later. So yes. I hope so. I was an early adopter. I was in right away. I hope I'm asked, and I will accept if asked.
So with him, are we just like to assume when you look at the makeup of the role, like is he penciled in or sharpied in as like this is the third big? Like this is just the behind Draymond and Al Horford. Like he's the first big they're going to turn to, unless you're considering Jonathan Kuminga a big.
Jonathan Kuminga does not consider himself a big, so how dare you? I think so. I think because the alternatives, Trace Jackson Davis, who again started some games for them last year, is probably not probably because Kuminga hasn't shown facility for this, but he's the best pick and roll finisher. Like he can go up and get a lob. Decent sneaky passer sometimes, but like the Warriors just have never won his minutes, and he's not a good defender. Is a little undersized. Like so TJD just is like a fourth big, I think. He's not a rotation guy necessarily, and he won't. There'll be a lot of games where he just doesn't play probably unless it's already decided. Post I think is going to play a fair amount. And you're going to have to insulate him with other defenders, certainly if he's out there against like opposing starters. But that shooting, Dan, that shooting's legit. Like that's, 9+ attempts per 36. He's a 40% guy. The guys look for him, and he understands
did that
the
hold
assignment.
Up in the playoffs? I'm curious.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, we're talking against like real like starting units. It's harder. I think against backups, especially if you just I don't know why this would be the case, but if you don't treat him like a guy that just is going to shoot it every time he touches it and loves to shoot and wants to get him up from three, like he'll burn. Like he really is that good of a shooter, I think. Like. So yeah, he's a specialist, but you can't say specialist without special, Dan. Very special.
Wow. Is there anything else though that like you're monitoring that you could see him developing or like getting better at or like providing this additional layer of production?
I think physical tools wise, he's pretty limited. Like he's not very mobile. He plays very small defensively for a 7-footer. One thing I said about him last year, and it's still true, is that like he understands what he's supposed, as a rookie even, he understood like what he was supposed to do on defense, where he was supposed to be. And the thing I love so much about him is that like he would screw up a lot and he would know, he knew it. He would always know, and he would know what the mistake was. And he like bad body language, he would be angry at himself. And so I kind of like that, to me is someone that I think will get as much as he possibly can out of his limited physical tools on defense, because like he's going to try to do the right thing and he understands what it is. So like maybe he gets better just positionally, or maybe he gets better as a verticality kind of,
his rim protection numbers were actually pretty good last year.
I think because he doesn't play defense like, well, I don't know if I should say that because he does make mistakes. He knows when the mistakes are made and he knows what they are. So I trust him to correct those, because it's not like, Draymond's going to shut up about it. Like if he doesn't know he's made a mistake, he will be made aware of it.
The end of the playoffs notwithstanding, we saw Moses Moody get like a pretty steady role with the Dubs last year. Yeah. Where are you sort of just at with him?
He's a really important player for them this year because they don't have another wing-sized guy who in theory is like a fairly high volume 3-point shooter that you would also trust to defend like a legit opposing 2 or 3. Like that was the Wiggins role for a long time, and that's not a role Kuminga can fill. And so Moody's kind of like, I remember we talked about this, it might have been, I don't know when it was, maybe a year ago, maybe more than that. Like, why doesn't Moody get more time? And my answer was like, because whatever they need Moody to do, there's somebody that's better at that thing. So like it would be Gary Payton would be your on-ball defender. He's better than Moody at that. You'd have, I don't know, Wiggins was a better 3-and-D guy. There was always somebody. And now those somebodies are kind of gone or have aged out a little bit in like Peyton's case, for example. So
he's the only 3-and-D possibility on this roster. Right
that's what I'm saying. Like, and I think that's an important piece to have on this team. So his role, it's funny, like his minutes per game have gone up incrementally every year, as have his points, as have his free throws per 100, as have his threes. So like he's incrementally getting better. He needs to be, I think, closer to like 38, 39% from 3. Then he's been like 36, 37. There's a 34, I think, in there. So, but like, there's nobody else to do what they need him to do. So I think by default and by like on some level merit, because he's earned it. Like he's the complete opposite of Kuminga, where he's just like, what do you want me to do? I'll do it. So I think he's going to, I guess I'm not going to spoil the lineup talk we'll have later, but I think he has to play a big role. And I'm on the fence as to whether like he can be starter level successful in it. I think it's possible.
What is the bigger concern, him on defense or him offensively?
That's a good question. I think offensively, he's not going to be asked to do much. So I think because he's going to essentially be a spacing threat that maybe cuts, like you can't ask him to dribble. Like he's just not someone that's going to do that. So I think he's somewhat of a...
You used to say that about Aaron Nesmith, Grant, and look how he's blossoming.
I mean, if he could move like Nesmith, we'd really have something defensively. I think defensively, maybe. Just like, again, I said it already, really like disruptive hands, like guys dribbling up the floor. He seems to like poke it away once or twice a game, doesn't always get the ball, but like kind of is annoying. Laterally, though, and vertically, he's just not like... He's not as athletic as you'd want someone to be in that position. So maybe defense is where, just considering the types of guys he's going to have to guard, is where like that's a pretty big like pivot point. At least how effectively can he guard some of the matchups he's going to have to see this year.
Does that concern span more to like how do you feel about him going up against smaller, let's say like ball handlers versus like some of the bigger power wings or forwards? It feels like this is watching him. I feel like physically I should be saying that I feel better about him being on like a DeMar DeRozan type or just like a bigger wing type forward.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. Like the vibe of it is I feel like he might be better suited to going up against the smaller players. Is that like am I missing here?
I'm struggling to I think he's kind of vulnerable sometimes against both. But like his length, he does use his length like pretty well. So I don't think you're wrong to sort of, if you're imagining Moody matched up against like, I don't know, Emmanuel Quickly or something like a not a huge guard. Like I think he's okay there. Which again, like you want Steph hidden somewhere. So Moody's going to get like kind of the Klay Thompson role, right? Where peak Klay would just guard whoever was more dangerous at the 1 or the 2, often the 1. So that'll be Moody's job. So he's never going to have to guard. I don't think he's going to guard the power wings because that's Jimmy Butler, that's Draymond, whatever. And that's Horford on switches. So yeah, I think it's maybe a good thing that
Quinten Post on switches too.
Quinten Post just turning. Oh, there he went. Yeah, I think Moody will be okay against smaller guards, but I'm not like I don't love it.
Who grabs more rebounds for this team, Gui Santos or Quinten Post?
Gui Santos, agent of chaos. That guy. I was talking to a friend of the pod, Bill, the other day, and Gui Santos, Dan, is an event creator. When he's on the floor, like things occur. Like
Isn't that what like Robin Hood provides? Like these prediction markets? Event contracts. Sorry.
Yeah, he should get a tie-in. Yeah, he's just a pure hustle guy that actually can shoot a little bit. I think he's no higher than like a 10th or 11th on the depth chart.
Well, that's what I was going to ask is there a chance he becomes more integral than like a GP2, a Seth Curry, maybe even a Melton, like upon Melton's return?
Yeah, Melton's a wild card given health. I don't think Curry's going to see a ton of minutes because like you have Buddy Hield for that role essentially, and Buddy Hield never ever misses games. So that's kind of spoken for. Look though, Jimmy Butler's if Jimmy Butler plays 60 games. I mean, that's probably on the high end. Draymond, same. Santos will have nights where he is in the rotation for sure. For him, it's like he's always going to hustle. It's just if he's going to hit, 2 of the 4 threes he gets up or 0, that's going to go a long way towards determining how helpful he is.
This isn't necessarily basketball related, but do you assign any significance to the Steve Kerr contract situation?
I mean, it is, I guess, a fraction of the significance you would assign to someone in any other situation than this one, where I do think he's there for as long as he wants to be, which is probably 2 years because that's just how the contracts are set up to expire for Steph and Draymond. So no, I don't think it's anything like if this season goes poorly, they're going to look elsewhere for next year's coach. Like good luck getting that past Steph and Draymond, right? Like that's a hard veto. So I think Kerr's there for as long as he wants to be, whatever the contract status is.
See, I didn't even think I view that as like the nuclear perspective. Like, is Mike Dunleavy trying to just like leave his own mark on like he would get rid of Steve Kerr? I took it as like, oh, does he maybe know something about like the immediate future of this core that we do not?
Well, maybe I've always thought like. He kind of put the lie to this, Kerr did, when answering the question you just posed me of like, he still loves it. This is what he wants to do. He's excited to come to work, like all the stuff he's always said. But I've always kind of thought in the back of my mind, like he's someone that he could go do a lot of other things, right? Like he could go back to TV, no problem. He could just, who knows? Maybe he has like social justice interests that he would rather pursue. Like that's definitely that's what his father was, very much like that kind of guy. And I think he is built the same way. So yeah, like, I don't know if it's like he knows that there's something like this roster is, I think he understands like the age here. Like he literally as a player, like lived through pretty close to this situation. Yeah. So I just think he's keeping his options open because he knows he has a lot that are not involved, that don't involve coaching. I think Eric Spoelstra being like already tabbed as the next Olympic coach, it's like, okay, that's one step back for Kerr. That was like something that was known to happen, but I think he's just that's the right approach for this team, right? Like, let's see how it goes. Like, we're not signing on for 6 years. God, who knows what this team is going to look like in 3?
Well, it's just weird because as a coach, it's just like you don't count against the salary cap. So if they're willing to pay you, and like you're like, I just don't. I find
do you think it's the team hasn't offered something?
But that's my point. Is like if he's the one who's making the decision as to I want to just go through this season and see how it goes. I want to know why, because like he could just play it. You could just sign something and play it on a year-to-year basis if you really want. I just find it like a tad more fascinating than you do the logic here. It's not that I view him as a lame duck coach.
Yeah.
I'm just like, well, if he claims
you think he's
going to
lose the locker room?
Look, I won't put anything past a team that has J.K., Jimmy Butler, and Draymond.
That's true. Noted malcontent Steph Curry could turn on him at any time.
I'm just curious as to like where his head is at more so than what is the organization thinking.
It is unusual, right? Like the lame duck thing is teams avoid that at all costs. Generally speaking, they always fire the guy in this situation if they're not sure. So it's notable. You're right.
Are you ready to enter the cookie cutter portion of the podcast, sir?
Yeah, even though it means we're almost done, I guess.
Well, you could find a way to turn it into another
I'm sure
hour
I could.
I
feel like I already have gone too long.
You look at this roster on paper right now without having seen a regular season game. What is the single biggest need that the Dubs have?
I've touched on it already. I think it's an on-ball threat that can break the paint, bend the defense, win point of attack matchups, like that kind of thing. Like they just don't have that guy.
I feel like you just described an all-star.
It doesn't need to be an all-star. It could be who's like the.
Don't say Derek White because that's basically
no. But I will say like Kobe White, like someone of that level. Maybe even he's not. It doesn't need to be. Who's just like. There's got to be like a mid-level guy that could do it.
Well, what I think becomes an interesting question there is if you want someone who's good enough to be in your rotation, you have to give up something to get them. And they obviously have assets, but how do you go about acquiring someone like that when I would argue they might not be in your closing lineup? Like there's players that would, but like a Derek White would probably be in your closing lineup, but that's a different tier. Like a Kobe White is a perfect example in the sense of would he be in the Warriors' playoff closing lineup? I don't. Maybe sometimes. Probably not, though.
Yeah, no, I don't think so at all. But that's just like, well, neither is Jonathan Kuminga, and that's the piece you're going to use to go get the type of player we're talking about. So, yeah, like, sure. Ideally, another star would be great, and if he can do those things, awesome. It's just the athleticism to break down a defender in a one-on-one situation, like in a downhill kind of way. That I don't, and that doesn't need to be a star.
Like a Devin. What if you could get Devin Vassell? I don't know why this.
He doesn't do that though, really. Like
he's probably not getting all the way to the basket.
I mean, honestly, again, this is a star, but and he's actually not that great at this anymore. But like Fox, just someone that's like. You shade help to him because he's probably going to beat his guy in a one-on-one matchup.
Wait, what? De'Aaron Fox?
You were on the Spurs, and I was trying to think of who's the quickest on-ball guy.
You said he's not a star anymore? Is that what you just said?
No. I'm saying he's not as good. 5 years ago, Fox was like, you can't stay in front of him. But now it's like he's shooting a lot of pull-ups.
It's like you made it the entire podcast without saying anything inflammatory. Like De'Aaron Fox is like an 8.
No, he's a max player, Dan. Obviously, but I was trying to think of someone who just like you can't stay in front of.
You said break down. So like Norman Powell is not really a good example there. That's like a weird name to have to find. What about Andrew Nembhard? Does he do enough of that for you?
I don't think so. I know he's a great defender. I don't know about offensively. I mean, like, just because I can only think about players on teams you're mentioning, like, I don't know, T.J. McConnell plays pretty fast. Like, what if it were him? What if he were your backup point guard instead of Podziemski? Like,
about Austin Reeves?
I want quicker. Where are these guys? Do these players exist anymore? Why can't we think of anybody? Rob Dillingham. The idea of Rob Dillingham.
The idea of Rob Dillingham. So what is something about this team that's flying under the radar that you think deserves to have more of a spotlight on it?
I just thought of this morning because I was trying to come up with something semi-interesting. So I think maybe this is not just this year thing. and this will play to you, who's always been more like, they need to go get the guy because Steph's prime is finite type of thing. Like, go get somebody. And I was always like, oh, I don't know about Jimmy Butler. I don't know if he's going to fit, like that kind of thing. I think the lesson is they've gone after two huge players in like the last 10 years. The one was Kevin Durant and the other is Jimmy Butler, and they both fit like perfectly, right? And they could not be more different as like the type of superstars they are. So I think the lesson is probably that like the Warriors never needed to be this picky, because between Steph and Draymond, they have like, it's an oxymoron, but like the two most complementary superstars of all time, where it's just like, what is like, Steph's not taking your game away if you're a superstar. He's making it better. Same with Draymond, other than the spacing thing. And even that's worked with Butler. So like, I think the lesson that the takeaway is that they could have gone after, like, you name it, like, I don't know, DeMar DeRozan at some point, or like anybody. And it's just like, it would have worked, because those two guys just allow whatever superstar you bring in to like do the thing they're best at, and they make that guy better. You know what I mean? Like, I think there's a case to be made that they should have taken bigger swings sooner, right? Because it's like the two they've taken, they worked, and those guys are like diametric opposites in terms of how they play.
It's like their bigger swings in the draft really haven't worked out, but when they're like incorporating like these established players, they have worked out. And I would echo that they probably could have made bigger swings sooner, or they should at least, when you're outlining their biggest needs right now, like they should maybe factor that into the equation. It's like, this guy doesn't really check all our boxes, but look at what's happening.
Just do it. Yeah, just do it. It's worked. You're 2 for 2 in your superstar swings. So yeah, I think that's right.
I am tasking you with building a 10-man rotation for this team. Who is your starting lineup, and then who will be the 5 most used reserves?
So I'm going to go mostly with, I'm going to lean towards what I think it'll be. And I guess that skews pretty close to what I think it should be. So it's very similar to what you provided on the outline, with one key difference. I think your starters right now, today, obviously there's non-negotiables: Steph, Butler, Draymond, Horford. They're starting.
What about bringing Steph off the bench in like a super sub?
That's what I was going to get to. That was my bold prediction is they're going to preserve him. They want to get 7 more years out of him. So 15 minutes a night.
So start Quinten Post.
Right. Yeah. Because he replicates the spacing and then some. So similar gravity, really. So the 5th starter, I think right now, is probably Moody. And that's mainly because of the defense stuff, the 3-and-D stuff, and the fact that unless you really mess with it, I think Podziemski still, even though I just dumped on his ability to do this, he's the closest thing to someone that can run a second unit that they have. So I think for now, Podziemski may make more sense off the bench. And then after him, Buddy Hield, obviously, Kuminga, Quinten Post. Those are the 4, I think, pretty clear bench guys. The 10th guy is probably Melton, if and when he's healthy. But prior to that, I think Kerr is, I think just going to mess around. So like GP2 will definitely have nights in the rotation. Santos, same thing. TJD is probably kind of behind those 3 just because they're not going to need 4 bigs most nights. But
yeah, like Melton, it would have to be if Quinten Post is shooting below 45% from 3.
Yeah, right. Or if the league is like, this guy's too good, you can't use him anymore.
Basketball reasons, yeah.
Yeah, so probably Melton as the 10th guy. But who knows, right? Coming off the ACL, he's still not ready, so we'll see.
I had not given a lot of thought to Moody as a starter, even though I recognize like the value he needs to bring to them on defense, because I kind of thought that, okay, the spacing is like, this shot might be there, but it's like, what are defenses going to treat it like? And Buddy Hield would have been just, that's a 5-alarm fire still.
Right.
And so that makes it easier for Draymond, Jimmy Butler. But the more I think about it, if you were like thinking from an optimization perspective of Jonathan Kuminga, putting him in the bench, having like Pods coming off the bench with Buddy Hield also coming off the bench with Quinten Post coming off the bench, like that's a lot of like complementary talent for him specifically.
I think that's a factor too. And really, again, like I guess maybe the argument for starting Pods and then having Moody on the second unit is then Kuminga becomes like the only guy that should be handling the ball very much. And maybe that's what he wants. And maybe that's circling all the way back, like how you up his value and get the most production from him. They may try that. I mean, and Podziemski has missed time in both seasons so far, so there will be nights where like that is just what happens probably. I still would. I'm very skeptical about all bench units on this team, though. So I think realistically there will be a fair amount of staggering where you're going to have a starter or two out there, like almost all the time until garbage time.
Friend of the podcast, Bill, asked me to ask you this question. Is there a chance that Al Horford comes for Draymond Green's starting spot? I think the implication being, like, would they ever just run, like, dual real bigs?
So
or you're bringing Draymond off the bench and you're starting, like, Moody and Pods or Moody and Hield or something.
I mean, I guess the argument for that is you can get to 5. Well, Butler's still there, so I don't know if you call that a 5 out, but closer.
That's what the Knicks would call a 5 out.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I don't know. I think they're both going to start, so I feel like I can just like dodge the question that way. Yeah, it's hard for me to imagine that because I don't know what value, I guess maybe as a facilitator with Draymond playing more with backups, that because I just said they don't have shot creators. Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
I feel like Draymond is more likely to get traded than to, even if you're staggering them and he's like facilitating with the backups, than for him to be coming off the bench is where I think I would like.
I think I agree because even then he's still not, like, certainly not the guy that's just going to break his man down off the dribble. That's just like not ever something he's done. So he'll play the handoff game with Kuminga, I guess, like or whoever else, and move the ball. But yeah, I don't know about that.
What will be this team's most used crunch time lineup? I'm assuming it's another situation to where, okay, the 4 guys are entrenched and they might futz and fiddle with that 5th guy.
So this is where I think Pods comes back into the picture. Same 4 key guys. And then I think in the interest of another, like, he's a better shot creator than Moody is. And there's a great chance that he just outshoots him too. So the spacing element you want is there. I think in crunch time especially, you're going to want as many guys that can punish defenses for overloading to Steph as possible. And Podziemski's like slightly, I think, just better equipped to do that than Moody. So I could see him closing with the 4 vets.
Is there a weirdo, or wackadoodle lineup rebranded by Saratoga, the Deseret News?
Yes.
Shout out to her, that you want Steve Kerr to try?
I have a couple. One is everybody can shoot, which is Steph, Buddy, Moody, Horford, and Post. That's kind of fun.
I didn't even think you could get to like an everybody can shoot lineup with the Warriors. To be honest, like I would have said like, oh, Seth has to go in there then.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, he might have to go in for Moody, in that look. And then there's a chaos lineup, which is GP2, Melton, Pods, Santos, Draymond, where everybody
so small.
But it's chaos, Dan. Everyone agitates everyone. There's so many deflections. They can't score at all, so they're just going to have to run. So that's kind of fun. And then because we have to do this, a supersize, I think you have Butler at the 1, Moody 2, Draymond 3, Horford 4, Post 5.
You took mine. Was
that it? I did.
I want to see it. That was mine.
Because there's no point guard. Well, there's like all 5.
Jimmy
Other
Butler,
than 4 of them can bring the ball over half court, and from then it's just you're just swinging it around and trying to find shots. Yeah, so
I wonder what it would look like if you put Jonathan Kuminga in Quinten Post or Moody's spot. I'd probably say I just want it to be ultra bigs. Like, let's put him in for Moody. What does that look like?
Because then you're like what 6'8"? I guess Draymond's the shortest guy by like quite a bit in that group. Maybe Butler. I don't know. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, God, I hope we see the one that you outlaid, though. Before we get to predictions, is there anyone else about this team we haven't discussed that you think warrants some discussion?
That we haven't discussed. We've covered a fair amount of ground here.
Well, do you want to repeat anything? If you want to repeat anything, you said feel free.
Well, the 2 things that I flagged before I realized we were going to hit them earlier, it's just a really big year for Podziemski. Not just because like we're going to be looking at extensions a year from now, but just because of what they need on offense. And like, I'm not super optimistic, but I think he has the best chance to be the guy that can facilitate and be a real on and off ball threat. So big deal for him to just show he's more than like a really good on the margins like contributor to winning. Like, can you do the conspicuous stuff offensively? We'll see. And then I think we've alluded to it. Just the general lack of athleticism on this team is like staggering, especially in the starting five, where whether it's Pods or Moody that's at the 2, like you don't really have, not really, you don't even have anything close to like an above average like run and jump athlete, partly because 4 of those dudes are on the wrong side of 35, but also because even like Moody and Podziemski are not above average, conventional athletes. So it's been a long time since we've seen a very good team that's like this slow and ground bound. So I don't know what that's going to result in, but just something to note.
So how many games do you have the Warriors winning, and where do you see them landing in the larger context of the Western Conference for the regular season?
So I'm going to tell you about my journey. You ready? A couple weeks ago, I said 47. And that's just because I couldn't get past the collective age of their best players and what that meant for like just a full season of availability. I'm bumping that to 49 because I think that the best minutes for this team when everybody's healthy are going to be as good as anyone in the West except for Oklahoma City. They played at like a 60 win pace with Butler last year. Kevin Pelton pegged him for 56 wins based on just them having like 10 break even or better players by his metric. Now, I'd push back on that and say like, cool, but they clearly don't have a couple things that none of that like those guys being above average players, like they don't provide it, like the playmaking stuff and the athleticism. So I'm going to 49. I do think like they when healthy are going to be really, really good. I just like they're not going to have all their guys like for a lot of the season, right? Like that's just, I have to price that in somehow.
So where do you think like what is going to be their seed range in the West? Top 4,
What's
you think they're a
49
top
get
6
you?
team for sure?
Yeah, I think top 6. I think they're in that group. I don't know what 49 typically gets you. That's probably
Is that even top 6 in the West?
I know, right? Yeah, that I don't know.
So
That's 4 or 5 maybe.
Yeah, so let's see what happened last year. So the Nuggets were 4 and 150 last year.
Okay.
And with the 4 and the 5 seed 150. So 49 would get you 6th.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think right around there. Like they could potentially be better than everyone but the Thunder, right? Like that's on the table, I think.
Yeah.
Especially like
this oversimplifies it, but you did just reference it. Like how many games are not even so like let's not even isolate like how many games is Steph going to miss, how many is Jimmy, but like how many games are the 4 guys, the Horford,
Right.
Draymond, Jimmy Butler, and Steph going to play together?
Is it half the season? Is it 41?
Right.
That's I would set the over under at just right there, because one of the 4, whether it's Horford's out for 15 just because he's not playing
15.
back to backs,
Yeah,
it's just, or whatever, however many there are, like he's just rule him out, and all the rest of those guys are like, is anyone going to play 70? And like I think by design they're going to stagger it so that okay, tonight Jimmy, it's your night off, right? Or like that's just going to be like purposeful. So yeah, if 41 starts to sound high, the more we kind of game it out.
Is there a team, like a prospective playoff opponent, that you find to be, and you could cover it from different ends of the spectrum, that's, particularly interesting to where you feel, the Warriors are a better matchup for them than expected? And is there a team in the non-OKC division that especially troubles you as a playoff opponent?
I mean, they've played the Thunder fairly well, which doesn't make any sense at all. I got to claim small sample there.
Well, yeah, but it's also just like, even when the Thunder go dual big, they're not like that big when you look at their perimeter rotation.
Yeah.
So I know that they're built athletically to kind of run roughshod over the Warriors, or maybe that has something to do with it.
Yeah, I think I would just default to I think Houston's a problem, just because of the athleticism and the length. I think Minnesota is. I mean, they played both of these last year, so we sort of have pretty good evidence that like it's not easy for the Warriors to play against teams that are young, athletic, play hard. Like that's just tough. On the other side, like a team like the Clippers, where it's like you don't want Jimmy Butler chasing Anthony Edwards, but I'm all right with Butler on like Kawhi because Kawhi is going to try to beat you with strength and position, and Butler's okay there. And like Harden is someone the Warriors have faced a billion times, and so they kind of have a rough idea of what to do there. So like the Lakers are another one where like the bigger like Luka as like, you know, he's impossible to guard, but like they're better against that type of superstar than just someone that's young and can outrun and outjump you and is 6'8" and has 50-foot arms. Like that's their kryptonite. So like Dallas is who's the most fascinating. If they ran into Dallas, like that would be because just a team that would be a good test for like how big does a team have to be before it like really messes with the Warriors who have just gone small and dominated in the past. Dallas could get really big,
especially if Kyrie's not healthy at that point. Is they have to go really big.
Yeah, and then if Kyrie is healthy, who's guarding him? That's a big issue. So yeah, fascinating. I think Dallas is. I don't know how that would possibly shake out. Maybe that's like unfortunately, that might be a play-in matchup for the Warriors if that's what happens. But
how do you feel about them against the Nuggets? Do you think Quinten Post can make Nikola Jokic uncomfortable?
He's going to pull Jokic out further than he wants to come on the floor. They'll demoralize him by, just drilling threes in his face. Yeah, the Nuggets are they're kind of the same problem for everybody. Just what do you do with Jokic? Because he'll just solve you. I don't know. I'm okay with Draymond and Horford as the guys you're trying to wrangle Jokic with, and everybody else is just kind of like, I don't know, stay home, I guess. I hadn't thought about them. That's an interesting one.
Mr. G. Hughes, this was great. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on and speak with me. Are you able just to tell our audience where they can find you?
Nope.
And all the fantastic work that you do?
You're going to want to check out the Hardwood Knocks podcast, where I talk usually less than this. I felt like my voice is sore. You can follow me on Blue Sky. It's on the screen. I don't know what my handle is. I don't care.
It's at Grant Hughes, and
thank you.
Like audio is our bread and butter, so you need to cater to that audience.
Oh, that's right. No, I want everybody to watch this. So if you aren't, then guess what? You don't get to follow me retweeting Hardwood Knocks related content.
Reskeeting.
Jokes on you. Sorry.
Reskeeting on the skyline.
Yeah, that's it. I write a Bleacher Report. So do you. People know that, I think. That's pretty much it. Check out the podcast. It's a good podcast. I think if you like this episode, you'll find several of them are somewhat similar.
I do sometimes wonder what's the value add in us telling people to subscribe and rate and review at the end of these, because if you've made it to like the end of the episode and you've never listened to us, I just wonder like what's the percentage of people that haven't hit subscribe or they're in the middle of the episode if they're new. But
I would say if you don't listen to the end of the episode, you don't get to hear us wringing our hands over like what's this all for. So that's I feel like that makes it relatable. It's a real bonus at the end. So yeah, listen to the end.
Until next time, and as always, shout out to Frank Ntilikina and apologies to Jared Allen.